Just to abbreviate so the front video isn't too long, since it's exactly the same as the back up to the armhole, here's my waist yarn, my ravel cord, and my 20 rows of mock rib. I've hung a weight on each end. I have adjusted the tension for the mock rib down to 6, and then it goes back up to 8 for the garment, and I'm about to hang the hem. I've picked up the hem almost all the way across, and I'm just going to put the last few stitches on. I pick up the empty, then I skip one, and I pick up the empty exactly the way that I hung the mock rib hem when I was doing the back. I just have 2 more stitches to do. Fill in an empty, and then I fill in this last needle with this one, and I'm going to knit across and close it. I have loosened my carriage already to tension 8, and I'm going to hang some claw weights on this edge and go a little ways. Here it is with the waist yarn removed, and I'll hang about 3 weights on and continue. The instructions say knit exactly the same as the back up to the armhole, and then to take all of the knitting off on waist yarn. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Now the instructions tell me to put half of the knitting back on the machine. So I'm dividing for the neck, and what I'm doing is I'm putting all the needles on one side of 0 back in out of work position, and then I'm going to pick up the knitting and start from the rightmost stitch and hang it on stitch by stitch until I have half the needles filled with yarn. The carriage needs to be on the same side that the yarn is on, so here's where the carriage is, and here's the yarn, and I begin at the far right, and I pick up a loop, and I can see what loop this one is to pick up pretty easily because it's the loose loop that has yarn hanging from it. But after that, I go along the top like that, picking up the loop that shows against the waist yarn. And this is pretty easy to do. This is just like picking up a plain hem. So I'm going to go ahead, pick that up, and then I'll be back. A claw weight on each end, and begin the shaping for the right side as the child's wearing it. Now I need to bind off 4 stitches right here for my size. I'm making the small size, so I'm going to bind that off just the same way that I did the back. And I know it seems a little silly to bring it off on waist yarn, just to bind it off and have it be gone, but that's how I'm doing this. Okay, that makes 2. Three. 4. Now I've got a shortcutty way for doing the neck and the armhole shaping that I want to show, and it requires a 3-prong transfer tool. So that's the tool I'll be using. What I'm going to do is knit across because the instructions say to bind off 4 at the beginning of the next row. And then the instructions say, I'm turning my row counter back on, then the instructions say to knit 4 rows, do a single decrease at the neck. So I'm going to use this triple transfer tool, and I'm going to go over by just 1 stitch and do a double decrease at the arm. This is the armhole, of course. Split thread is unacceptable. And just do that again so they don't split. Oops, double decrease, so I need to overlap 2 stitches. For the double decrease, I have 2 stitches on this needle, 2 on this needle, and 1 on the end. For the single increase, I have 1, 1, and then 2. Then I knit 4 rows and do that again. single at the neck, double at the arm, and I'm going to proceed until there are very few stitches left and then come back on camera. Now I'm going to need pretty soon to remove one of these weights because as this gets to be narrower, it can't support so much weight. Look, I'm getting to the bitter end. I've just done my double and my single, and it's this narrow. And you can hear it hitting the row counter each time I go by, but sometimes when your knitting gets very narrow widthwise, you don't hit the row counter anymore. Now look how weird this is getting. When I do my double, I'm actually going to end up with 3 stitches on this one needle. So I'm actually down to 5 stitches. When you get to the very end like this, you can do the double decrease. Okay, that gets you to 3 stitches, but this thing is actually supposed to end with only 1 stitch. So I'm going to double up this outside stitch so that it's supposed to end with only 2 stitches. So I'm doubling up this outside stitch. So it'll only have 2 stitches on it. And then I'll put those 2 stitches together. And guess what? I'm going to cut the yarn and knit it through. And that is the top of the first side of the front. Bring that through. And just get the weight off and turn it over. The waist yarn is still on. I have one side of the front knitted. Now I'm going to pick out the needles from 0 to 41 left of 0 and start the second side.